Okay, in this recording we're going to talk about the next chapter, which is 24. And 24 is on aggregate supply and aggregate demand. So here we are with some axes, and the labels the book uses are inflation and output. And there are two lines drawn, AS and AD. Hey, the thing about the book just dropping this bomb on you that all of a sudden there's this AS, this AD, and there's no explanation of how we got there, is that it completely loses track with the previous chapters. We've been talking a lot about how this model of the economy is built up. We've drawn a Keynesian cross and also a money supply and money demand curve. When the book just shows you AS and AD, I think that it does you a real disservice because it doesn't connect those previous chapters to this. So what we're going to do is connect the previous chapters to this graph so that you have intuition for where this lines come from. Okay, first we're going to start with aggregate demand. Aggregate demand is the side of the economy that we've been talking about so far, specifically the Keynesian cross and money supply and money demand. So how much demand is in this economy? Let me zoom out in this picture here. Okay, what you're going to see is that this AS-AD axis is actually part of a bigger picture. Now, don't be frightened by this. Okay, so what I want to do first is look at the parts of this picture we know and talk about what it is. Okay, firstly, we're looking at AS-AD. And two of these equations, or these pictures, look really familiar to us. They are this picture, which is labeled goods, that's our Keynesian cross, and financial over here. Okay, financial, money supply and money demand. So as you can see, these labels line up. We know that Y goes on this axis and this axis. Z goes here, I goes here, M over P goes here. Okay, and this distinction of saying over P is just saying real money. Okay, so what you should see here is that we have the top letters correspond to all the horizontal axis labels here, and none of these are filled in. And all of the vertical labels correspond to the vertical axes. Okay, Z, I, and finally P. P means just the price level. In the book we're using inflation, so it would be inflation on this axis. But, you know, saying the price level is a different way of looking at, we're looking at either height of the price level, the stock, or inflation, the flow, the change in P. Okay, so either one of those you can look at. Now the book, you know, like I said, just drops this AS-AD on you and says blah, 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 intuition, yada, yada, yada. But it's really hard to see where that AS-AD comes from until you look at a bigger picture of the economy, which is what we have here. So let me erase all marks so this gets a little clearer. Okay, and as I claimed, what we've been looking at so far is actually aggregate demand. Why is it that this Keynesian cross, and that is, again, this box, and the financial market, or money supply, money demand, imply this aggregate demand equation down here? Okay, the key is that these two have in common two axes. They have in common Y here and I here. So the goods market and the financial market together imply this relationship of supply and demand, which is known as ISLM. We don't need to know what ISLM is in this class. That's more of an intermediate macro topic. But what ISLM does is this intersection is what implies the downward sloping of AD. Okay, so AD, the downward sloping AD, is the result of the interplay between the Keynesian cross, and the financial market, which we've seen already. Okay, the other side of this equation is AS. Now the book just gives you AS and again doesn't say much about it. The thing is that aggregate supply comes from the labor market. Okay, so over here we did something. We said the goods market and the financial market together okay, so this plus this gave AD. The other side of the token is that the labor market gives the aggregate supply. Okay, so this picture's not the cleanest thing in the world, but you have to remember that the economy is way more complicated. This is a very simple way of thinking about the entire economy. So the focus here, ASAD, this is what we're talking about in this chapter. AD comes from the things that we've recently seen. AS comes from the labor market. So when you're looking at this picture, always be thinking the bigger picture. Where do these things come from? These are our micro foundations.